Peace and love, family, and welcome back to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, the host of the Sunday Hope and Healing session, where we come here to offer encouragement, offer hope. I share things that have been things that I've been blessed to uncover on my journey that have helped me and pass them on to you, as I believe that they will also help you. And we also actually offer healing, actual healing that we do through a methodology referred to as transcending the matrix, which is really a holistic approach to healing that addresses the totality of a person's being, spirit, mind, body of affairs, and can really impact all aspects of one's life. And so, as always, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And our focal point for today, by the way, today is September 8th, 2024. And I want to give a special shout out to Eugene Mason III, who is an initiate of Transcending the Matrix. Happy natal day to you, my brother, and I hope the day is overflowing with bountiful, bright blessings for you. Also, a special shout out to Ruby Carr, who will be celebrating her natal day the end of this week on Friday. And so our kind of focal point today, if you will, is really dealing with faith, right? And I kind of name this loosely, what is faith and how to strengthen, it's supposed to have said yours. What is faith and how to strengthen yours? Can't believe that I left off the S. Okay. All right. So, I always pray on what to focus on. I don't necessarily pray for the title per se. Maybe that would be useful too. But what to focus on for the Sunday Hope and Healing sessions. And so in the context of today's broadcast, it was to deal with faith. And I thought about naming it what to do when you're experiencing a crisis of faith, or a crisis, a faith crisis, where you feel like you're losing faith. And then, I didn't end up going that route, but I do realize that there are some people who experience that. But regardless of whether you're dealing with a crisis of faith or not, it's a good thing to have, right? And really shout out to Damien, one of my favorite people on the planet, who actually I'm blessed to enjoy as being my brother as well. He has a thing where he'll sometimes ask people if they could choose a superpower, what would their superpower be? And his thing is to have unlimited faith. His response is always to have unlimited faith. And so let's talk a little bit about what faith is. Greetings, Curly Conscious King. It's good to see you. Actually, for the second time today. Good to have you in the space as always. Blessings to you, my brother. Sending a bunch of love in your direction. So what is faith? Is faith something that we only have in God? Interesting question, right? My answer to that question is no. My answer to that question is no. Faith is not something that we only have in God. And so there isn't really an issue of anybody not having enough faith. Okay? Faith is not something that anyone has a shortage of. In the biblical scripture, it talks about how everyone has been given a measure of faith. And it's not that one person has been given a larger measure of faith than somebody else. The issue is where one directs their faith. And so what faith is Like the Bible kind of talks about faith as being the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. For those who are familiar with the scripture, you can perhaps relate to that, or at least familiar with the words. But I want to kind of speak to it a little bit, because very much faith is the ability to see what hasn't yet happened, and the ability to actually even get emotionally invested in the future fulfillment of something in the present moment, right? To be able to see an event that hasn't taken place and being able to place yourself mentally and emotionally in a state of the fulfillment of that thing which you are imagining to happen in the future, as if it was already happening right now or has happened in the past. And so all of us do this, right? Every single one of us does this. It doesn't matter how committed to a spiritual journey you're on or not. You do this. You time travel to a point in the future. You imagine what that future is going to look like respective to this or that particular thing. And then you get emotionally invested in what your imagination is telling you about this future event. Now, the empowered way to go about this is with a sense of optimism and confidence in a desired outcome, right? Got news for you, beloved. That's not the way that we always use our faith. Some of us have faith in things going completely left. Some of us have, all of us at one point or another has faith that things aren't going to work out the way that we want them to work out. There's a word for that, actually. And that word is worry, right? Anytime that we're worrying, we are putting energy, we're putting our faith in the direction of something that we that we hope won't happen, will happen, or fear that something that we're afraid of happening is going to happen. And then sometimes we act out, we speak out, and we act out according to the direction that we're placing our faith. Remember, faith, I kind of defined faith is seeing some future event that is not necessarily determined, except in your own mind, seeing something that has not yet occurred as it is occurring and becoming emotionally invested with it, right? And so it works both ways. You can have faith. You can have faith in things not working out, or you can have faith in things actually working out. You can have, this is another one. You can have faith in your own strength and in your own intelligence, or you can have faith in God. Let's speak to that for a minute. So we are multi-leveled and multi-layered beings. All of us exist on multiple levels and on multiple layers. And the key is in how we consciously and unconsciously identify who this I is, right? How do we identify who this I is? And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times when we say I, we're speaking on the behalf of our ego selves. A lot of our I's are respective to our ego, to our sense of separate self, to that part of us that is endeavoring to edge God out, right? That's where we go frequently, most of the time, by default, when we say the word I. Even when we're talking about something divine, a lot of times when we do it, we're doing it from an ego perspective when we say I. Now, there is this ego aspect of us. There is this physical body temple aspect of us, and there's also a divine aspect of us. I would say the divine isn't even an aspect. The divine is the essence. At the core of who I am and the core of who you are is divine, is divinity in its embodiment. Okay? And so we're each, I've said this before, a drop of water from the ocean of God. Every drop of water, no drop of water is the entirety of the ocean. That would be ridiculous to think that any individual drop of water is the entirety of the ocean itself and all of its extreme vastness. However, every drop of water contains all of the properties of the ocean, right? And in the biblical record, it says that we're made in the image and after the likeness of God. We're made of the same stuff that God is made of. Now, when we identify ourselves with that, it's a total different level of identification. And there are ways that your ego might even want to play with that a little bit too. But it's a whole other way of identification. And so there's a difference in there's a nuance to this. There's a difference to taking, whatever your level of human intelligence is, using about the 10% of your brain capacity that you're using. I don't know of what exam you could take and get a 10% on and it'd be considered a passing grade. 10% is just really missing the mark by a very significant distance. By the way, that's what sin means. That's all that sin means, is missing the mark. So most of us are operating, we're blindfolded, touching a part of the elephant, thinking we know what the whole thing is. We have an askewed perspective of life as a function of the lenses of the matrix that we're viewing life through. And that impacts how we see ourselves, how we see one another, how we see God, and how we see all of life. However, when we get to a point where we're able to shift our perspective a little bit, and that's, I guess, a big part of what I'm aiming to do, to plant some seeds in your awareness that might help to foster greater fruit in your life, that the things that I'm sharing might be fertile seed that makes its way into virile seed that makes its way into the fertile soil of your mind and your spirit, that it might also be nurtured and tended to, and that it might grow, and that it might bear good fruit that you can partake of and that can help nourish and sustain you, and through which you can actually offer out of the abundance of your supply some fruit for others that they may be able to also benefit from, right? That's all I'm endeavoring to do here. Okay, it's kind of what I see as the purpose of my life, and the reality is it's the purpose of all of our lives, on one level or another. And so at the core of our essence is God. At the core of our essence is God. You are a divine being with the ability to call into your life experience that which you imagine, that which you hold in consciousness, that which you give your focus, energy, and attention to. There's this concept that energy follows consciousness. Okay, where you're directing your consciousness is where energy is going. There's also another saying that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. The thought seeds that you're planting in the world have a way of manifesting in your life, right? And so this is actually, this is actually bringing us to our point about what faith is and how to strengthen yours. Not just how to strengthen yours, but how to strengthen your faith to be able to, let me reword that. How to strengthen your resolve to place your faith in divine things. How to place your faith in God. How to place your faith in everything working out together for your good. I have an aunt, Faye, who she shared this story with me on more than one occasion, where she went to, different elders, including my late grandmother, and asked them if there was, much later in life, if there was anything that you could have done differently in life, what would it have been? And pretty consistently, and certainly my grandmother's response, this was my grandmother's response to the question, was I would have spent less time worrying, because it all works out in the end anyway. And a lot of that worrying, was dealing with money and financial things and, things on the material level in one way or another. And remember what I said about the worrying before? The worrying is placing our faith in the opposite direction of where we actually want it to go. And a lot of times when we're worrying, we're not worrying consciously. Who worries on purpose? I don't think anybody gets out of bed in the morning and says, what am I going to do today? What thoughts am I going to hold in my mind today? How am I going to use my power of imagination today? And then says, oh, I think I'll worry all day long and be stressed the heck out because that seems like a fun thing to do. No, people don't do that. People don't just go worrying and being stressed out about stuff that hasn't happened yet and frankly might not ever happen on purpose. People don't do that because they feel good doing it. People do it because it's somehow become the default setting. People have gotten into the habit of stressing and worrying and thinking about the things that they don't want to happen. That's why the Bible says, whatever the things are that are good and are pure and are lovely and are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything worthy of giving praise regarding, think on those things. Let your attention, let your consciousness, let the place that you direct your energy from be from that space, right? And so, because at our core we're divine beings, though that gets muddied up with all of the ego stuff that we deal with and our distraction from the various levels of the matrix of illusion, this matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation that ends up having us in kind of a perpetual cycle of engaging in the belief of this false evidence that appears real. To put it differently, we're putting our faith in the matrix instead of putting our faith in the kingdom of God or in the sustainable state, what I like to call the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction. Right? And so for anybody who deals with a crisis of faith, the crisis is really not simply one of faith, but one forgetting who one is. One, I know that it's hard for us to imagine. You've had some people in your life who have judged you, who have condemned you, who have told you where it is that you fall short and how it is that you don't meet their expectation. Maybe they've told you that with their words. Maybe they've told you that in their behavior towards you. Okay. Maybe you experienced, even while you were yet in the womb, some negative dialogue about you. And the reality is that you've never forgotten anything that you've ever heard, seen, smelled, tasted, or touched. It's stored within the cells of your body, in the DNA of your body, right? You might not be able to consciously recall it, but it's there. And to the degree that we kind of let that stuff in, to the degree that we kind of let that stuff in to our psyche, by the way, do you know what psyche means? Psyche doesn't mean you're mental. The word psyche, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe I am, is a Greek word that means soul. All right. And so you end up letting this gook into your soul and you forget who you are as a spiritual being. There's this movie, an animated movie called Spirited Away. And there was a point in the movie where there was this dark spirit that was very toxic. It was pretty much devouring everything in its path, very destructive, you know, kind of consuming everything in its path. Imagine a humongous parasite just going around spreading its negative energy and sucking the life out of every place that it went. All right. Agent Smith from The Matrix would say that's the nature of human beings. I'm not going to go there. And what it ultimately dealt with was that there were things that this spirit needed to be cleansed of. It had accumulated all of this garbage and it had taken in all of this garbage and all of this gook, and it needed to be cleansed and purified, coming from a spirit of love, from a spirit of love. Okay? And then this evil, toxic, selfish thing became something much more beautiful. And instead of destroying life, became life affirming. Well, in a way, that's kind of an analogy for how you and I can be. We're so powerful. But let me get this, folks. Get this. And I want you to get this in your inner being. I know that you've made some mistakes in your life. And I know that not everybody who's crossed your path or who has crossed your path has necessarily seen the good in you, has seen the beauty in you, has seen the innocence in you. You might have experienced some traumas and some negativity that might have you oftentimes feeling like damaged goods. And maybe people have told you that you are. You may have made some decisions in your life out of a sense of brokenness that negatively impacted other people, and in all likelihood you have. You may be the reason that some people are in therapy or need to be. There may be things that you did that profoundly negatively impacted other people. And as a result of all of that, there may be levels of shame that you might feel with respect to these things. You may have been taught in your religious indoctrination that God judges you and condemns you because of your sin or because of the ways that you had been broken and therefore acted out your brokenness. But I want to tell you today that no matter what anybody has ever told you about you, whatever you have told yourself even about you, and all the reasons that you don't deserve blessings, all the reasons you don't deserve good, all the reasons you don't deserve love, all the reasons that blessings should maybe not fully manifest in your life, maybe to a degree, but only for so long, but only so good and for only so long, right? I want to say to you that beyond all of those mistakes, beyond whatever the programming has been, beyond whatever toxic ways that you might have developed, there is a God that loves you and sees you in your complete innocence. There is a God who embraces you and is ushering you to return home to the truth of who it is that you really are. There is a God in you that is rooting for you to awaken to your essence. There is a God that looks at you in your times of greatest brokenness and is then most seeking to invite you to the path of wholeness, even though you might at times be running away from it. And not only that, the essence of God lives inside of you. Hear me what I'm saying. The essence of God lives inside of you and is waiting to wake up and be activated in your life. Now, in a very real sense, we have creative power, whether we're using it constructively or destructively or constructively. Like that spirit in that movie, Spirit Away, I was telling you about. In a very real sense, we have the ability to call forth into manifestation things in our life, whether those are things that we don't want or things that we do want. And so how do we strengthen, not just strengthen our faith, but how do we strengthen our resolve to place our faith in divine things? How do we strengthen our resolve to recognize that all things are working together for our good? How do we strengthen our resolve to get to the point where the things that we worry about, where we get to a point that even if those things that we don't want to happen do happen, you get the diagnosis and prognosis. Your loved one that you've been praying for still doesn't show up the way that you want them to, that you believe will be most healthy for them. The loved one that you care about makes their transition. All of us are going to leave this planet at one time. Most of us don't ever want that moment to be now, right? We don't want that moment to come. What happened? What if, the money that you're trying to get together for your mortgage or for your rent or for your car note or whatever the issue is, for your tuition, whatever the issue is, that it doesn't come together by the deadline, that you don't pass the exam? Maybe things won't end up unfolding the way that you want it to, that the person that you've given your heart to ends up not honoring it, and ends up, you end up having an experience of betrayal. What if all of those things happen? Even if all of that stuff happens, having the faith that you're going to be okay no matter what. I can tell you, folks, recently in my life, there have been some things that have happened that didn't happen quite like I wanted them to. I've had a wonderful time at this conference at Unity Village in Lee Summit, Missouri. Had a beautiful time, met some pretty cool people there. Got to be in my element in a way that I haven't so much lately. And I really, really, really enjoyed it. Got to see a brother from Detroit. We ministered together, who was at the conference as well. Just a lot of wonderful experiences. Then leaving the conference, kept having flight delays. Had a connecting flight that I was told was canceled while I was waiting on my delayed flight. Had a layover in Atlanta. And in that process, getting ready to get off the plane, I found out that my flight actually from Atlanta to Tampa was actually still on, but the gate was closing as I was getting off the plane. Ended up stuck in Atlanta for a couple days and ended up with COVID. Found out that I had COVID. I was completely devoid of energy. Ended up having to, I'm not going to give you all the details of all of that stuff. Cut a little further. I'm stuck in Atlanta for 2 days while my luggage went to Tampa. And when I finally did get to Tampa, there were toxic fumes in my apartment that I'm sure had something to do with the power going out and a lot of humidity in the place in Florida in the summertime. And things were pretty rough for a while, and then presented with some stuff, and it wasn't something I was really ready to wrap my mind around, but now I see the good in it. All right, now I see the good in it. Didn't even have the energy to really do healing work on myself at the time. But those weren't things that I would have liked to have happened the way that they end up happening. I finally get back to Tampa and end up having to get a hotel right off the premises of where I live, and stay there for several days. But there were many good things that happened along the way. Mel, good to see you today. But I think back, that came up because it was something very recent. But I think back, to sometime several years ago, where I was dating a young lady at the time. She needed use of a computer. This was quite a while ago, mind you. This was in this was maybe late 90s. It was probably the early part of 2020. And I had a laptop. I let her borrow my laptop, and while I was in her presence, it stopped working. And I definitely needed a computer myself. We had started this ministry, Free People Center for Truth, Love, and Wisdom. I needed to produce some materials for this ministry, but I didn't have a computer anymore myself. So I went to, because it stopped working while I loaned it to her. So I go to my mother's house to use her computer, and I'm able to do that and create the documents that I created. Some of them needed to be cut. We're going to need to be cut. And right basically across the street from her home, there was an Office Max. And I know it's Office Depot now, but it was just Office Max at that time. And the guy is, printing out my things for me and everything, and ultimately ends up showing me all of this stuff about who would become my teacher, Dr. Cam Ewan. To this day, the wisest soul in a human body that I've ever met, by far. And I had the chance to study basic, intermediate, and advanced levels of Chinese energetic medicine under him. And my life has never been the same ever since. And transcending the matrix wouldn't be a thing if it hadn't been for me doing the training that I did with Dr. Ewan, the late Dr. Ewan. But that never would have happened if the person I was dating at the time, if I hadn't loaned her my computer and then the computer broke. If that happened, it wasn't something I was glad that happened at the time. But if that hadn't happened, this Sunday Hope and Healing session right now wouldn't even be taking place, right? The people who are in this live broadcast, who've done the Transcending the Matrix training, they wouldn't have this powerful modality at their disposal if it hadn't been for the computer getting broken while this person that I was dating was borrowing it, right? That just wouldn't have happened. But even beyond that, I wouldn't have even been in Michigan had a loved one at the time not had a heart attack while I was in Michigan for a brief visit. And even then, I wouldn't have been still in Michigan, having come home for a weekend in 1998, if I hadn't been kicked out of seminary, right? If I hadn't been kicked out of seminary. Now, that being kicked out of seminary was not a pleasant thing. It was not something that was easy to deal with. It didn't feel good at the time. But the getting kicked out of seminary led to me being able to be back in Michigan. And me being back in Michigan, which I never intended to live in Michigan again when I left to go down to Tuskegee, Alabama at the age of 17, I never again expected to live in Michigan. And so my mother's best friend, really, in a lot of ways, more of a sister than just a friend, she said, as a result of this heart attack that this other loved one had, said, I have a feeling you're going to be here a while. I resented it the moment it came out of her mouth, because I was not trying to spend that much time in Michigan. I went home initially for a weekend that ended up being 16 and a half years ultimately. But had all of those things that in my conscious mind were certainly undesirable things, with the exception of the opportunity to be able to train with Dr. Ewan. But that would have never happened. That would have never, ever happened if all of those other so-called negative things wouldn't have happened. Yes, a curly conscious thing, King, there's always a divine path, solution, and strategy in the midst of our obstacles. Yes, nothing is wasted with God. That's right. All of these things are working for our highest good. Yes. And even though we might make some missteps along the way, there is a divine plan in place. Before you came to earth and you were dealing with your dysfunctional family and coming across all of these folks who were acting out their brokenness on you and before you got fired from whatever job, or you got broken up or cheated on by whatever person, before you had people kick you out of, their circle, before you had these experiences of not being embraced for your authentic identity in the midst of other people who didn't see you as the same as them, so they ostracized you because of that. In spite of all of that, in the midst of all that, God never gave up on you. There's still something wonderful and pure and beautiful about you. And God still has your highest and best good at heart. And if you can allow yourself, I didn't intend to come up here preaching this afternoon, but if you can allow yourself to open up space in your awareness, we experience these crises of faith, not as crisis of faith, but if we were to really call it what it is, we're having a crisis of faith in God. We're having a crisis in faith about whether or not God really loves us, or a crisis in faith about if God can really work a miracle on our behalf. We're not having a crisis in faith in and of itself. We're just putting our faith in the wrong thing. We're putting our faith in whatever the heck we're worried about, wherever it is that we're stressed about and experiencing anxiety over. And the only reason that we're putting our faith there is because just as we have a lover of our souls, there's an enemy that's at work trying to distract us from being in touch with the greater truth. And that enemy, I'm not talking about something outside of yourself. I'm talking about that enemy that lives within. The part of you that's trying to edge God out. The part of you that wants to keep you locked into a state of fear, locked into the misperception of all of this false evidence. There's a tremendous amount of false evidence, and sometimes it appears really real. Right? And that is just a distraction from what the real truth is. And while we're muddied up, while our vision is muddied up and skewed, our consciousness is tangled up with all of this craziness, then we miss the point of the divine thing that's really there. We forget who it is that we really are. We become lesser versions of ourselves. We sabotage our own well-being. And then we act in ways that justify the negative perceptions that we have about ourselves. And one of the ways that we even carry that out is by being janky to other people in different ways. Right? But when we remember who it is that we really are, and we operate from that space, when we return to a purity of heart, when we align our consciousness with the divine, when we tap into the God consciousness and allow ourselves to receive the good that is always offered on our behalf, when we allow ourselves to even entertain the possibility that there's something good that can happen for us, even though we don't necessarily see the way through which that's going to become made manifest. We do it all the time with the stuff that we're worried about. We don't necessarily have proof that things are going to go badly. We stress out, we angst, and then when things go better than we anticipated, we might experience some relief. And then when things go the way that we kind of projected that they would, then we just use that as further validation that we were right all along. When the truth of the matter is that we can do the same things in a much more constructive way. Okay. So I'm going to do, oh boy, it's already 1:46 Eastern time. I'm going to do a little bit of healing real quickly to help us strengthen our resolve and putting our faith in that which is actually constructive, right? So if you would like to to be able to strengthen your faith in God. Strengthen your faith in the truest part of you. If you'd like to be able to strengthen your faith in things working out in the way that's going to ultimately support your highest and best good, then I invite you to tap into this healing. If you know of somebody else that this will benefit, send this to them and tell them why you want them to see it. In this last few minutes, we're going to do some healing to help clear some things out and to further activate that which will help to serve for your highest and best good. So I'm going to start with a prayer, and then we'll do the actual healing. Oh God, I thank you that you are the healer of healers, that there's nothing that extends beyond your healing power. And that there's no order of difficulty in miracles, that all miracles are equally easy for you, though they don't go to the people who need them. They go to the people who have a confidence in their fulfillment. Put another way, those who have faith for their fulfillment. And I give great thanks for being able to be a vessel of your healing on the behalf of myself and all of those who are tuned into this healing right now, whether catching the live broadcast or catching it on a playback. For the purpose of neutralizing the root cause of our proclivity and tendency to put our faith in things not working out. From the point of the root cause in every aspect of our consciousness, as well as all cumulative effects, and transmuting that into and replacing it with a sense of divine alignment and attunement with that which supports our highest and best good and the highest and best good of everyone involved, and that we're able to, with strong resolve, direct our faith in everything working out in a way that unceasingly amazes us, in ways that unceasingly amaze us and allow us to further intensify our awareness of just how loved we are, and to be thoroughly tapped into the awareness that with you all things are possible. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Oh, thank you. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right, so let's get into it. So let's look at self-judgment about the places where we have placed our faith in that which is undesirable for us. We want to transmute that self-judgment into self-acceptance based on the reality that we thought and operated in the past based on where it was that we were in that moment, and where we were in that moment was based on things that we simply hadn't yet had the wherewithal to resolve. And then further transmute that into a deeper resolve to be able to operate from a more healthy and from a more whole place. And even going to the point in the future where we would want to self-condemn that we thought that we should be there by now, but still aren't quite as far along as what we want it to be. All right, so let's, along with that, attune our hearing so that what it is that we're hearing in our inner ear, I'm not talking about the physical inner ear, but the things that the tapes that play in our minds, that we attune our hearing not to those that are critical and cause us to doubt ourselves and to doubt our worthiness. To doubt our worthiness was a big issue there. All right, but to actually attune our listening and our hearing to the Spirit of God's love, unconditional love for us, in alignment with the voices that speak powerfully in a way that's able to support our faith being directed in constructive ways. Our faith in God, our faith in the presence of God, active and alive within us. Okay. It blows my mind that someone who used to really seriously be a knuckleheaded kid who would get in trouble in school and have on his report card for citizenship frequently fails to demonstrate self-control, who used to throw rocks at cars driving down the street and go up into the attic and try to throw broken records, like vinyl records, over the house behind us with no thought of who they might actually hit. That same person is a person who gets to actually participate in the manifestation of people's medical miracles, people's pain disappearing on the spot and stuff like that. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. But there are wonderful things that can be made manifest in your life and through you as well when we come to activate the divinity within us. All right. So one of the ways that the ego wants to show up is in what it is that we can't do. So, and one of the ways that kind of manifests is in us thinking that we can't do something, we better not do something. You know, all of this negative programming and this negative self-talk that we engage in. Yeah, in your egoic self, you can't. When you're identifying the I as your ego, you can't. But when you get to a point of subconsciously identifying the I of who you are with the essence of who you are, you disassociate yourself from your brokenness and realign yourself to the truth of who you were before you entered into this body. Let's strengthen that. Let's strengthen that. In terms of, you see, when we place our identity in our job, what it is that we do, how much money we have, how good we look in our youthfulness, how much attention that we get for doing whatever it is that we do, and all of those things, those are all conditional things, things that are fleeting, things that aren't guaranteed. And then if we end up losing our job, or we end up losing our money, or gravity starts to take hold and our body doesn't look the way that it used to, and wrinkles start appearing and all of those other things start happening, or the people that, we thought gave our lives value, that they are no longer in our lives. We end up experiencing a crisis of identity when that happens, if those are the things that we placed our identity in. But when you place your identity in the things that are eternal, then you're an eternal being, and the spark of God that is eager to light a flame in the totality of your life experience, bringing both light and warmth to the totality of your life experience, then those other things can't shake that in the same way. And you don't lose that sense of identity, because you'll never stop being that. You might only stop remembering that that's who you really are. Okay, so let's strengthen our memory to remember who it is that we really are, and to be able to clear away. I've got a number. I'm not even going to say the number. Grid lines of the matrix from our consciousness, transmuting them into beams of love and light, and building blocks for the unconditional love grid, the field of good that is available to you and to everybody else. Now, let's look at resolving unresolved emotions about things not working out the way that you would have liked to in the past. So, regret, resentfulness, feeling disillusioned or betrayed. Ooh, that betrayal was a big one. We want to transmute all of those things through the power of pure love, and transmute them into confidence in God's ability to work things out for your good, even when other people meant it for evil. There are things that God still means for your good, and can take those things and put a little spiritual alchemy on that thing and make it work out really, really well for you, beyond what you even thought was possible. Okay? All right. Strengthen that. All right. So let's look at limitations in your thinking. Let me say our thinking, because I'm going to include all of us, myself included in this. Limitations in our thinking. Limitations in our thinking about what's possible. There are things I've shared on this Sunday Hope and Healing session before. There's been more than one occasion where I've been blessed to align my consciousness in such a way that ended up manifesting as things happening with the weather before, right? And this one particular occasion, there was all this rain coming down. I was visiting someone, and turned out that my windows were down in my vehicle. I needed to let the windows up. I prayed that I needed to go let the windows up, and I wanted to stay dry in the process of doing it. And my perception, I made room for the possibility that it could happen. But there was nothing in my physical senses that were telling me that it would. I imagined maybe somehow God would miraculously put a force field around me, so that when I walked out to let the windows up, I'd somehow be able to stay dry. That wasn't how it ended up working out. But I did end up letting the windows up, and I did end up staying dry going to do it. And the way that happened blew my mind at the time, because I didn't even think about that as being an actual possibility. Excuse me if you hear this chair squeaking. Every time I make some kind of movement, it squeaks. All right, let's get back to the healing, because it's already 2:02. All right, so let's look at elevating our mindset and our belief system to make room for good things happening in a way that we could have never even thought of on our own. Okay, let's strengthen that, boost that. And transmute the tendency toward pessimism that some people sometimes refer to as realism. The realest things aren't the things we can see with our eyes. The realest things aren't the things that we can work out with our left brain, with our intellect. Okay. The realest things are those things that are transcendent. Okay. And the reason that I've been able to participate in the healings is because the sickness wasn't real in the first place. And by grace, I was able to attune with that, and it was able to show up in people's lives. In terms of what it really was is the elimination of the illusion, the transcendence of the illusion, or that false evidence that appears real. Okay, all right, so let's let our spiritual eyes override our physical eyes. Okay. So that we can walk by faith when not by sight. That even when we're looking around and we don't necessarily see how, the how isn't really our business necessarily all the time. We might not see how a thing will work out. And maybe it won't work out in the way that you're thinking it will, or the way that you think you want it to. You know how many things I thought I wanted to happen that I ended up being glad that it didn't happen that way? Or how many things I thought I didn't want something to happen, but that ended up, just being one of the dominoes in a series of things that set me up for a, whole nother level of good or a much, much better thing for me. Oh boy. There's so many of us who, if we have eyes to see, sometimes it's not a matter of these eyes. Sometimes it's an inner eye, a spiritual eye, to be able to see beyond what we, with our own intellect, can come up with. We make room for something much, much more beautiful. So let's deal with, for a moment, I want to actually deal with the right brain, and to be able to activate our imagination, to be able to use it constructively. Activate our imagination to be able to fine-tune what it is that we're focusing upon and where we're giving our energy of imagination to. Okay. Shoot, what's his name? I have this guy pictured in my mind. Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard talked about, kind of equates God, the God of your own being, as imagination. That the God in you, through what it is that you imagine, can call forth wonderful things into your life in ways that other people would probably be amazed. Right? And so to be able to imagine from a space of the God mind in a way that supports your highest and best good and the highest and best good of everyone involved. Let's boost that. All right. Also want to infuse the pineal gland with love and light. Clearing off any ossification on the pineal gland, clearing off any calcification on the pineal gland, breaking them down into quantum particles to be cleared through your lymphatic system, and or transmuted into photons of light. Okay. All right. All right, let's look at actually let's look at optimizing the communication between the right and left hemispheres of your brain and clearing the blockages in the communication between the hemispheres of your own brain. And purifying the corpus callosum through the light of God's love. Clearing away any gook that might be sitting within the limbic system, as well as any psychic debris. Clearing away any psychic debris, transmuting it through the power of pure love. Into photons of light. With that, let's also strengthen your nervous system to be able to successfully handle new levels of information making its way to you. And to be able to embrace them as part of your divine alignment. To be able to be in awe of them. Okay. To be able to be in awe of them and simultaneously fully accept and embrace them. All right. Thank you, God. Let's go down to the base of your spine. All right. We want to clear trauma and memories from the first 7 years of our existence on Earth, outside of the womb. And then let's take it back to the time when we were in vitro as well. So any fetal trauma or negative memories that we've bought onto and assigned those things to as a part of our identity, and transmuting those things, filling them with, welcoming into those places the light of God's love to transmute and purify those negative things into joy and bliss and peace, and to be able to celebrate where it is that you are now from an authentic space, because that inner child has been sufficiently nurtured, taken care of, healed, been unseen and understood, respected, and fully embraced. Thank you, God. Well, there's some good and juicy stuff. May more people be able to be privy to this, because I don't know if you all have any idea the depth of what it is that is happening during our time here together. All right. All right. So let's want to create a triangle between our eyes, the visual cortex, and the, ooh, my goodness, the visual cortex in the back of the brain, I want to do it as a triangle. All right. The pineal gland, third eye. Sorry about that. I somehow knocked my mic off, so sorry if it sounded real loud for a little while. To our heart, and then back to the pineal gland. And allow divine light coming down almost like a, you know, I experienced something like this before, so it's interesting trying to describe it. But imagining like a divine light entering in through the top of your head. That looks similar to like on Star Trek when they'd be beamed up someplace, but that light coming down, pouring into the center of your head. Going back to the pineal gland, to your throat, to your heart center, to your solar plexus, to a little bit below your navel, and to the base of your spine. And then down both legs, through the soles of your feet and into the earth. All right. And simultaneously, from your heart center, outward through your shoulders, arms, hands, and outward into the world. So that you're literally serving as a bridge between the heavens and the earth. And that as you walk upon the earth, the light is pouring through your feet into the earth, so that that divine light is being grounded into the earth wherever you go. And that in the work that you do on the earth, that light of God's love is, the presence of the light of God's love is on it and flowing through you. Ooh, boy, there's some juicy stuff right here. All right. Anyway, that's how I endeavor to move in the world. And you just got some strengthening to help you to do the same. God, thank you so much for this. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. for this healing that's taking place, and for the joy and the privilege of its fulfillment. We thought that we were going one place with this today, and it ended up being so much more. Thank you for that, and all of these gifts of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. Wow. Well, God bless you, beloved. It's certainly been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure being here with you all on Sundays. I'm very honored and very thankful, and I want to honor you for being here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't feel like there was something of value being offered. So you wouldn't think that there's something of value being offered unless you have some level of spiritual awareness, because without some level of spiritual awareness, you're not going to value these kind of spiritual things. You're just not. If you're at all interested in being able to do what it is that I do, Curly Conscious King, you're more than welcome. It's certainly my pleasure. If you want to be able to do what I do, the magic is in me, but I am not the source of the magic. The same magic that is in me that, does come up and show outwardly in the world sometimes, I'll acknowledge. But that same thing is also in you. And it's just a matter of accessing it. It's just a matter of accessing it and employing it. And I'm happy to give you access to it and to give you the opportunity to employ it so that you might use it for the good, not only of yourself or not merely of yourself, but in the lives of people that you care about, in the world at large even. Okay? So if you're at all interested in that, 21 years from the weekend of the first ever Transcending the Matrix class in September of 2003. The last weekend, September 2003, was the first ever Transcending the Matrix class. Well, here we are 21 years later, the last weekend in September 2024, we're having a Transcending the Matrix class. It's going to be Friday, September 27th through Sunday, September 29th. By the end of Saturday, the 28th, you'll be able to do what I do. Chances are, if you've not already been through the training, you don't believe that. I've been doing this for 21 years now, and it holds true. I'm not just pulling some stuff out my back pocket. I'm telling you what I know. I'm not just telling you what I know because I'm believing this and I'm choosing to believe it. I'm telling you what I know because what I've seen and experienced, right? Anyway, if you're at all interested, reach out to a brother, Royce Fletcher Thomason, either on Facebook or on Instagram. Just share that you're interested in the training / initiation. I promise you a life-changing experience, and I also promise you that you're worthy of it. Okay. We certainly would love to have you to be able to join the family of Transcending the Matrix people. Again, shout out to Eugene Mason III, who's celebrating his natal day on today, and to Ruby, who will be celebrating hers on this Friday. A lot of love to both of you. And to all of the rest of you as well. If for whatever reason you feel inclined to this work that we're doing with the Sunday Hope and Healing sessions, and it's a joy and a pleasure to be able to do this. If you want to go into what it is that we're doing, you can do that at Cash App at Royce F. We certainly welcome that and definitely appreciate that. That pretty much wraps us up for today. If You know of somebody who you feel would be blessed by this? First of all, you do know somebody who would be blessed by it, if you know anybody at all. If you think there's somebody that you know that might be somewhat reasonably receptive to it, I encourage you to share this with them. Send it to them. Whether you're sharing it on Facebook or whether you're sharing it from the YouTube link, copy and paste it in a text or put it in an email or however you want to, and share with them what you think they specifically will get from it. People, you ever heard this saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? I know that there are people in your life that you love and care about, and there is likely somebody in your life who could benefit. Not likely, there definitely is somebody in your life who could benefit from this and who may be receptive to it. And if they make it all the way to the healing part, they're going to get something that's very useful. Okay, beyond just my talking, right? But tell them that you love them and that you care about them, not in a sense that's saying that you think that you know more than they do, or you don't think that they're competent to work out their life on their own, however they see fit, but in a way that acknowledges them and supports them in their journey. Anyway, that wraps us up for today, folks. I love you. I'm so thankful for you. I pray God's richest blessings upon you, and as we continue to endeavor to enter into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, I bid you adieu with peace and love. Look forward to catching you next time.